Well, the Eagles were certainly not expecting this, as shocking news just dropped today that Philly's defense has suffered a major blow with a serious injury to one of their star defenders. So how does this affect the Eagles' defense, and who will step up in his absence? Meanwhile, the Birds just made a flurry of roster moves, including bringing back a familiar face that Eagles fans won't be too happy about. Plus, a new report just dropped that Howie Roseman could be planning a trade for a new cornerback, so who could be a target? Well, let's talk about that, the Eagles' new plan for Tampa Bay, and all the other latest news starting right now. So the Eagles are currently hard at work preparing for their highly anticipated matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday, in what should be a very exciting and possibly very important early season test, as this Week 4 matchup will now be the 4th time the Eagles faced the Bucs in Tampa over the past 3 seasons, and in the previous 3 matchups, things generally haven't gone so great, as Philadelphia is just 1-2 in those previous 3 games, and their 2 losses might be 2 of the worst performances we've seen from an Eagles team in the Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni era. And heck, since that era began, the Eagles are just 1-4 against the Bucs, so if one team has the Eagles number, it is clearly Tampa Bay, especially when they're playing down in Florida. So with another matchup coming up in just a few days, the Birds are looking for every advantage they can possibly get. And as I'm sure you've all heard by now, that reportedly includes plans to change up the travel schedule this week, as John Clark reported back on Monday that the Eagles will fly down to Tampa a day earlier than usual on Friday. That way, they can try and acclimate to the heat and possibly get in a workout on Saturday. And Dave Zangaro also noted that the intense heat down in Tampa in Week 4 last season was a real issue, so this year, they're taking a different approach to counteract that. And Zangaro's right. I mean, if you'll remember back to that game, last year, not only did the Eagles see safety Reed Blankenship exit the game with a heat-related illness, but they also saw both Jalen Carter and Cam Jurgens go out with cramps due to the heat, and they each ended up getting IVs. So again, the heat was clearly a factor in that one. And this year, it looks like the temperature is going to be in the high 80s to low 90s, and I've even seen people say that it could feel like over 100 degrees. So if going down there a day earlier helps in any way to be more prepared, then I'm all for it. However, I'm kind of with defensive coordinator Vic Fangio in thinking that it probably won't make that big of a difference, and rather it's more just about, are the Eagles in the right mindset to go and tackle the intense Florida heat?
Well, it's too late to do anything right now for it, as far as prepping for it. You don't practice in the heat one day and say you're acclimated, or take a pill and say you're acclimated. The key will be, I mean, it's a mindset, number one. Number two, we need to not let them have 8, 10, 12 play drives on us.
As much as the heat is surely going to be a factor in this game and the Eagles need to be ready for that, the much bigger challenge comes with this actual Bucs team themselves, as this is one heck of a football team that has found a way to stay undefeated through the first 3 weeks of the season, and even though they are down some key guys, specifically on offense, they still have a lot of talent and present a major threat.
It's a really good football team. I talked about how much respect I have for Coach McVay last week. The feeling is completely mutual for Coach Bowles and his staff. They got playmakers everywhere, Those 2 backs that they have are really, really good. I think Baker Mayfield's playing outstanding football. Vita Vea, who's been there forever, feels like been there forever, right? 2 good corners with Dean and McCollum. Winfield's made a ton of plays. Levante David's been a star in this league for a long time.
They're very balanced. They run it good. They throw it good. The quarterback is playing really good. I've always liked Mayfield. I think he's a good quarterback. Why these teams that had him didn't keep him, I don't know, but GMs make mistakes. I've always liked Mayfield, and their backs run hard and good, so they got balance.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly some high praise there for the Bucs offense, and specifically Baker Mayfield. And again, there's no doubt that he and that unit present a challenge. However, I'm less worried about how the Eagles defense matches up with the Bucs offense, especially with no Mike Evans and other guys potentially being out, and rather, I'm much more worried about how this Eagles offense matches up with the Bucs defense. I mean, we know how successful Todd Bowles has been against Jalen Hurts in the past, and Bowles going head-to-head with Kevin Patullo is clearly a huge coaching mismatch in the Bucs' favor, so I'm definitely a little concerned about that. But my hope is that KP is able to learn from what happened last week, build on what they did right in that second half, fix some of the other issues, and overall come out much better than they did the past few games. I mean, my advice is put the game in Jalen Hurts' hands again, open up the playbook, let him air it out, and just lean more into this passing game in a matchup against a Bucs defense that has been fantastic at stopping the run so far this year. Not saying be one-dimensional, and the Eagles definitely got to get the run game figured out, but overall, I think the Birds' best bet is to attack the Bucs through the air, make them pay for blitzing, and specifically lean on A.J. Brown, who, if you'll remember, missed the last two Bucs games, but the last time he did play them in 2023, he had 9 catches for 131 yards, and the Eagles won the game. So hopefully we see something similar here. Moving on, though, to some Eagles roster news. It was reported on Tuesday that the Eagles would be bringing back cornerback Eli Ricks to the practice squad ahead of this Week 4 game, which that makes complete sense given the news that we got earlier in the week that both Adoree Jackson and Jacorian Bennett could be out for this game against the Bucs. So bringing back Ricks gives the Eagles more depth at that position, and if one or both of those guys can't go, I think there's a strong chance that Ricks is elevated to the active roster for this game, but we'll see what happens. And it also seems like the Eagles may not be done making moves at the cornerback position, as a recent report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler just dropped, where he spoke on who could possibly be active in the trade market in the weeks leading up to the trade deadline, and he brought up none other than Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, specifically saying, quote, "I still think the Eagles might not be done at cornerback and could survey the market." And honestly, that doesn't come as much of a surprise considering the early season struggles and now injuries of both Adoree Jackson and Jacorian Bennett, although I will say Jackson has been better over the past couple weeks. Not to mention that Howie Roseman's worst fear has officially came true with Isaiah Rodgers, as since leaving the Eagles, he has become a star with the Minnesota Vikings and just had the highest graded game in PFF history this past Sunday with his pick six, 2 forced fumbles, fumble recovery, and scoop and score touchdown. And while obviously the Eagles can't go back and rewrite history and fix that mistake, they can go out and add a more proven guy on the trade market to shore up that position. And if you want to get into some examples, there's a few guys that could make sense. Now, for the record, I'm kind of just throwing names around here, but maybe you could look at someone like Ravens veteran cornerback Chidobe Awuzie, who by the time Jair Alexander is back, might not be getting too much playing time in a pretty stacked Ravens secondary. Or what about Buccaneers veteran Jamel Dean, who is in the last year of his contract and has some young competition behind him? Or maybe Browns cornerback Greg Newsome could make sense, as he's also in the last year of his contract, and of course on a Browns team that isn't very good. And also, there's free agents like Stephon Gilmore and Asante Samuel Jr. that could be options at some point or another. And then there's the dream scenario that everyone talks about in Denzel Ward, as he just restructured his contract a couple weeks ago, making a trade more possible. And he honestly also probably wouldn't cost too much to trade for, as historically, star veteran corners that have been traded after earning big contract extensions haven't yielded that much in return. Heck, look at what the Eagles gave up for Darius Slay back in 2020. Just a 3rd and 5th round pick for the star cornerback that was about the same age back then than what Ward is right now. And let me just say this, if the Eagles could pull off a trade for Ward, that would be absolutely insane, as he's easily one of the top cornerbacks in the entire NFL and would form an elite trio in the Birds secondary along with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Now, that said, Ward is owed a ton of money over the next 2 years, and there's been no indication that the Browns actually want to trade him, but we do know that the Eagles were in on the Micah Parsons sweepstakes, and if the trade deadline rolls around and the Browns aren't very good, could Howie Roseman call them up and convince them to make a deal? I don't know. I'd say it's probably very unlikely, but you can never rule anything out with Howie Roseman, so we'll see what happens. Moving on though, the big rumor that everyone has been talking about since yesterday is the possibility of a CJ Gardner-Johnson reunion in Philadelphia, after he was just surprisingly cut by the Texans. Now, is that actually possible? I'm honestly still not sure, but regardless, of course, Nick Sirianni was asked about that possibility on Wednesday, and yeah, pretty safe to say, I don't think we're going to be seeing CJ Gardner-Johnson back in Eagles green.
Are you interested in bringing CJ Gardner-Johnson back?
I really am excited about the room that we have. I think they've done a really nice job to date. Got a good young player in Andrew Makuba, who's continues to get better, and I think that having Reed next to him is helping him get better, and just as how Reed got better, having Marcus Epps in the building, and Reed said that I've said that in here before about Marcus Epps. So Just really excited about that room. Sydney's doing a really good job. You know, he's doing a good job on special teams and doing some work on defense as well. So I'm really excited about that group and pleased with that group.
It seems like the Eagles are pretty happy with what they have at the safety position currently, and they just doubled down on that on Wednesday by officially signing Marcus Epps to the active roster. And this came with a flurry of other roster moves that also included signing Cam Latu and Perry Nickerson to the active roster, while signing linebacker Lance Dixon, cornerback Eli Ricks, and also wide receiver Quez Watkins to the practice squad.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I honestly can't believe that Quez is back. I mean, as much as I joke, I don't hate the guy, and he definitely has shown ability and has had some positive flashes in the past, but just with the way things ended in Philly, with that drop in the Super Bowl, and then the terrible year after that, and then not doing anything since leaving the Eagles, I'm just a little shocked that he's getting another chance here, but, you know, it's just the practice squad, so nothing too crazy, and there's no guarantee that he even sticks around, but, you know, we'll see. Moving on, though, the Eagles also made a few more moves, placing 3 guys on IR, those being cornerback Jacorian Bennett, which that's a bit of a surprise, still don't quite know what happened to him, and then wide receiver Darius Cooper, which isn't a surprise after he suffered a shoulder injury during the Rams game. And then the big shocker is edge rusher Nolan Smith, as he apparently re-injured the same tricep that he tore in the Super Bowl and will now miss at least the next 4 games. And actually, according to reports, the goal is for Nolan to be back after the bye week, which there are 5 more games before then. So seems like he's going to miss even longer than that. And obviously, for one, I mean, I was not expecting this. Like, I hadn't heard anything about Nolan Smith getting injured in the Rams game, let alone it being this serious. And 2, this is obviously a major blow for the Eagles defense, as Nolan is the top edge rusher on the depth chart right now. He's played the most snaps there out of anybody so far this season, and not having him now definitely hurts not only the Eagles' pass rush, but also their run defense out on the edge. Now, luckily, the Eagles are fairly deep at that position, with guys like Jalen Hunt, Josh Uche, Zadarius Smith, and Patrick Johnson all being there, so the Birds will definitely be relying on all those guys to step up. And personally, I'd watch out for Uche to get the biggest increase in snaps, which is actually something that I'm fairly intrigued by, considering that Uche was the highest graded edge defender in the entire NFL through the first 2 weeks of the season, and he's shown a ton of flashes in a very limited role so far. So hopefully we see his production go up with an increase in snaps. And I'll also be curious if Nolan's injury means that we finally get the chance to see Azeez Ojulari, who spent the first 3 weeks of the season inactive. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, but overall, losing Nolan Smith definitely really does hurt a lot, and definitely praying that he recovers quickly, because the Eagles need him. Now, switching over to Jordan Davis, and he was just rewarded for his efforts this past week, as he won the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week award after, of course, getting the game-winning blocked field goal and touchdown against the Rams. So congrats to him, definitely very well deserved. And again, that play gets all the attention, but JD was a star in every area on Sunday, both on special teams and defensively. And through 3 weeks this season, Davis has actually been the most productive defensive tackle in football, putting up 16 tackles, which leads all DTs. So again, I've said it 1,000 times at this point, but Jordan Davis' breakout season is officially here. And that said, you guys know that I'm going to be continuing to cover that, as well as all the other Eagles news that comes out throughout the rest of this season. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications. I do about 4 to 5 videos per week here, so again, you're not going to want to miss anything, so subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also drop a like down below to show some support, because it really does help me out so much, guys. Let's see if we can get to at least 600 likes on today's video. That would be greatly appreciated. And also, hit the hype button, because that also helps me out as well, if you can find it. Honestly, I still don't know what that thing even fully does, but again, I know it helps me out, so do that. And also, leave a comment down below, just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. What are your thoughts on the Nolan Smith injury? What do you think about Quez Watkins coming back? Again, just give me all your thoughts. And also, if you do want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.